Hey there, Goblin Gang. Nico here. Moved and mostly settled in now, as you can probably see by the new backdrop here. Anyway, today I'm talking about this carrier, the LBT 6094 G3v2, which I'm going to call the G3 from here on out. This one is sappy medium size and has pretty much LBT's full suite of add-ons for it. Here that we'll be talking about in Ranger Green, because they did not make one in Moss Gray until the week after I bought this one. It's a weird carrier, and we're going to talk about why. As usual, I'm pretty long-winded, but I'm going to try to have chapters in the timeline to make it a little bit easier to jump to where you'd like to. Whether or not I can get that to work, there will be a table of contents down in the description and on screen now.
I don't want to leave this up for too long, so please like and subscribe, share this video around to anyone who might be interested, and don't forget to call me short down in the comments.
London Bridge Trading, or LBT, is a tactical gear company located in Virginia Beach, meaning East Coast SEALs country. They're one of the old names in tactical gear, and their 6094 plate carrier is one of the real classics of body armor. I've talked about them before. I think one of my first videos was talking about that one. And it's no secret that the 6094 QRC down there is one of my favorite plate carriers. The G3 here is their newest iteration of the 6094 and has some pretty significant changes from the classic. First off, here's the specific list of parts with this carrier. Carrier itself, a kangaroo panel, set of interior foam pads, set of side plate pockets, and a radio pouch. I paid $400 for it when they were on sale as a package back in March. As always with LBT products, you should wait for a sale, although the G3 doesn't go on sale as often as the original 6094. I have a medium here, as always, but it's also available in sizes small through extra large, so almost all of the sappy sizes. Other than the Ranger Green here, it's available in LBT's trademark Moss Gray, Multicam, Multicam Black, Coyote Brown, and just regular black. This G3 has fitted plate backers that easily fit sappy mediums, like these Hesco 3810s, with space for a plate backer. Bottom flap attachment, and there we go. It also fits 10 by 12 like these RMA 1155 MCs, and while it's a little bit tighter, especially on the edges, it's not a difficult fit at all. Underneath the pads, the inside has this stretch fabric with mesh panels, along with the attachment points here, again, for the pad. The front and back faces are symmetrical. And as you can see here, both have laser cut moly. The front has these diagonal cuts along the top corners. Great for securing comms or camelback hoses. And two sets of concealed loops. This one is buckled in, and there's another one on the top, right there, for hanging placard attachments. These loops and how they're attached also reveal something interesting about the construction of this carrier that we're going to get to in just a second. There's also a small kangaroo pouch here, which has a shock cord in it, but it's not really big enough, not quite big enough for a extra rifle mag in there, so don't get too excited, but it's a useful little storage spot. The bottom of the front panel is, of course, just flat Velcro for attaching a placard, as is standard these days. The back, in addition to the molly cuts and the 3 Velcro strips up here, also has a drag handle that includes a little strip of Velcro to secure it down there. Now, I've mentioned drag handles a couple times before, mostly in how they're not very common on modern plate carrier designs, but they are especially an indicator of military focus development and older design cues. Finally, down here at the bottom, it's the LBT standard pass-through cummerbund attachment. Don't worry, we'll definitely talk about this more. But notably, there's no back panel attachment zippers, which doesn't bother me. But if that's a feature you like, it's not here. Also, because it's just the pass-through with no Velcro or anything on the inside here, you cannot attach aftermarket cummerbunds to it. The cummerbund itself is skeletal and laces in the back with the included shot cord, and there's a spare, of course, for a very, very adjustable fit. These cummerbunds are also specifically sized with your carrier, and this one fits me quite well. For example, you can see here that these are marked medium. There are stiffeners in the horizontal bands. No, I'm not going to cut this open to find out what they are. And vertical stiffeners on each side and in the rear. It attaches in the front just with Velcro and has these little ears in the bottom corner to make lining it up and pulling it off a little bit easier. The shoulders are the same material and actually the same piece as the front and back panel, the faces, if you will, and come out at a slight angle, front and back, and you adjust them by overlapping. There are also pads, which are these trifolds, and most notably, on the underside, there is a Velcro section that you can line the pad up with to make sure that the pad doesn't move at all, and they're quite comfortable. They also have cuts through here, all along it, so you can tie anything down to it that you need to. Like I said, I got this with a couple extra accessories beyond just the carrier. If you only get the carrier, it comes with these clips and this molly panel. Beyond that, have the kangaroo placard, side armor pouches, radio wing, and the pads. So, let's go over them one at a time. The pads are a very stiff foam with several air channels, including a center one. And they're great for having some weight on it. Even with the heavier RMAs, this was not uncomfortable to wear. And the breathability along your spine is really nice for cooling. That said, they're pretty thick, which I'll talk about more in the fit and feel. But on their own, they're usually about $40. So it's up to you if it's worth that. They attach and detach pretty easily. Just go to the Velcro, and they've been very secure for me. The default front modular panel is also available directly as the Squadron Fast Clip modular panel, and is 6 channels wide and 5 rows tall. There's also what they call the G3 modular panel, which is, according to the picture on their website, 1 row taller, if that's important to you, and I guess you could then plug it into the higher clips. For about $30, they're certainly an option, but with all the placards available on the market, you can probably find something that will work better for you specifically with your loadout and not having to layer stuff onto a modular panel. The kangaroo panel here is where the seal's input becomes especially obvious. There are drainage holes in the bottom and open corners. Elastic on the sides to hold it closed, but internally it's basically just a set of openings that Velcros in. No active tension retention, but you do have very nice shock cords with very solid tabs. It fits AR mags, unsurprisingly. I don't think that's gonna stun anyone. I don't have any 7.62 mags to test it on, but there's a little bit of wiggle room, so those might be able to fit. If someone wants to pick me up some 7.62 mags, I'll be happy to check it. But yeah, there's definitely wiggle room here, so I bet you can fit a 7.62 mag without any real issue. That said, this is almost $70 on its own when it's not on sale. For that price, I'm definitely going to prefer an S-Tac panel instead. I still don't have an embedder or other cool radio to really test this out, but I assume it's going to fit well enough. There is some slight flex to it, and a drainage grommet there at the bottom. Where it gets interesting is how it attaches. As you can see, this is a separate piece. On the back, there's a webbing strap and a Velcro loop. There's hook on the inside and loop on the outer side. And you get this small Velcro panel, hook on one side, loop on the other. To insert it, let's see, I'd suggest cutting a piece of manila folder to fit, and then sliding it through so it doesn't catch. Then you can arrange it to sit on either side. So there we go, for just one side. Hold it through and pull the folder off it. And then you can attach it to the front panel. Connect it, and it can hang out either side depending on which way you set it up. Alternatively, you can route the G3's cummerbund through the webbing. And while it's a little bit of a tight fit, without any active retention, it does seem to hold. Again, I don't really have a radio to test it out and see how well it holds on, but that's an option. More interestingly though, the Velcro wrap can be used to connect it to other cummerbunds that have the Velcro loop on the inside. For example, here's the Ferro Assault cummerbund, and the B's 3-inch Molly cummerbund. On these, you open it up, push it through, put it where you want, and then attach it on, and you have a very solid retention right there. If I recall correctly, this should also work with the AVS's cummerbund, but I still haven't actually bought one of those yet. These side panels are a neat little addition. They are slip overs without a particularly secure connection. Just find the hole right in there and run it through. I don't have a 6x6 side plate to test here, but it looks like that's what they should fit. Unfortunately, because they are slip over, as you can see, you're blocking off sections of the cummerbund's attachment. Instead, you have two open top magazine pouches, so that space isn't completely wasted. If you need side panels with this plate carrier, well, that's your option. These will work. I don't have it here, but also available is what they call a universal M4 panel, which has elastic pouches with Velcro wraparounds and attaches with Velcro and G-hooks. It's nearly $80, which seems a little expensive, but the Cry AVS detachable flap is $101, and the LBT one is compatible with pretty much any placardable carrier. So that's an option if it's something you specifically want and don't have an AVS or an AVS compatible carrier. And might be something I look at if I start actually comparing placards, which is likely because they're a lot cheaper and easier to talk about than plate carriers. Okay, we've already seen a couple strange things looking through this, and I haven't pointed them all out, but now it's time to focus in on them. On a broader level, LBT describes this guy as their new lightweight modular plate carrier derived from our original industry staple plate carrier 6094 with updated materials and functionality. A less generous way of describing that I see a lot is calling it LBT's JPC clone. The updates and the modernization, while still being tied to a legacy design, let's say, are the reason behind most of the weird stuff. And there are certainly visual similarities, mostly look at the shoulders here, to the JPC, but it's definitely not a clone. The G3 is constructed in an unusual way. The front and back sections have two major parts. The first is the actual plate bag itself, the part that actually holds the plate. The second is a separate layer over it, which conceals some things like the connections I mentioned here for the placard loops, and covers up where the drag handle attaches. And then that second layer is what the laser cut Molly is actually cut into. So far, this is pretty normal. Where it gets strange is that the shoulders are part of this front panel. This means that the shoulder attachments are actually further away from your skin by the thickness of your plate, and it's further exacerbated if you have the pad. I'll talk a little bit more about it with fit and feel once I actually put this on. But while we're here, there's a little more to talk about the shoulders. The shoulder construction is a big part of why the G3 doesn't feel like a classic 6094, which I'm going to go over later, and why it's visually similar to the JPC. The classic 6094 has an asymmetric front and back. The back panel is rectangular, and the front is plate-shaped. The shoulder straps attach at the outer rear corner, while the while the front straps attach to the inner top corners. This configuration is what I call trapezoidal straps, and you can see here, wider at the base, narrower at the top, sort of like a chopped off triangle. In contrast, the G3 has symmetric front and back, with both shoulders in the front and back attaching just below the upper corners. And there's a slight angle outwards, but it's mostly straight here. Unfortunately, this ends up feeling kind of generic and very similar to the way the Vicarian or the Slickster felt, which I talked about in a different video. Compared to the JPC, despite that initial similarity of the triangular attachments going into a wrapped padded section, the shoulder straps on the G3 stay inside of the outer edges of the plate compared to the JPC, which goes all the way out. And you can see here, there's a pretty big difference in how far out they go. At least that's how it fits for me. The G3 might go out further if you have to let the straps out more. However, because it's closer to vertical, when you're adjusting it, you just adjust the plates up and down, unlike the JPC. I talked about it more in its own video, where when you adjust it, not only are you adjusting the length, you're also adjusting how far out the shoulders go. That makes the G3 a lot easier to adjust with a much wider adjustment range that is actually viable in use, which I certainly prefer on this one. Compared to the shoulders, which I think strayed way too far from the classic 6094, the cummerbund attachment, I think, doesn't go far enough. As I mentioned, it's a pass-through connection. Just a fabric tunnel here with no positive securing. Now, I'm just basically flossing this back and forth. To be perfectly fair to it, it does work just fine, and I don't have a real problem with it, but it's very dated in the modern plate carrier space. Most, if not all, modern carriers, like, say, this Faro FCPC, have Velcro panels in the rear that you can directly secure a cummerbund to, and most aftermarket cummerbunds are built off of that consideration. The biggest exception, as I talked about last video, is going to be Cry, which, while it does have the shot cord lacing similar to how the 6094s go, it positively attaches to Molly here, and then you also have to lace it through on the sides. So it's a little more secure. things considered, it's not really a bad feature, but it's certainly unusual in a modern carrier, and I understand why this might turn people off, especially with how many people automatically upgrade their cummerbunds with an aftermarket one. And it is what it is. Fortunately, this little bit of weirdness is pretty small and cheap and easy to fix. You may have noticed that these buckles look a little small, and it's made more obvious next to these 1-inch clips on this S-tack. For some reason, LBT decided that they were going to go with 3/4-inch clips for their placard attachments, while the rest of the industry settled on 1-inch. They work, and even have some benefits in that they're less bulky. That said, if you want to use any other company's placards, you're either going to need G-hooks, which is what I personally suggest actually, or to replace the clips. Fortunately, LBT does sell sets of 1-inch clips for about $3, and other places have them pretty similarly priced, or you can just go with G-hooks and have a even lower profile attachment system. I've already hinted at how I think the G3 feels, but to state it explicitly, it feels just fine. The pads feel good here. The shoulders are in an okay place, if not as comfy as the classic 6094's trapezoidal straps. Without the ability to really adjust where the cummerbunds sit, I can't offset the plates vertically as much as I'd like, so you can see it's a little bit farther down. Here's the base of my neck. Still got a bit there. But it's still acceptable. The shock cord corset lacing in the cummerbund lets it shift just enough with your breathing without it flopping all over the place. Despite it being serviceable, though, I can't help but be disappointed. LBT plate carriers feel great. One just feeling okay is kind of disappointing. For the price and the brand involved, I mean, frankly, I expect better. And that's not even getting into the issues caused by the shoulder construction. Because the shoulder straps are attached to the face of the carrier, and here I do have the pad on, there is well over 1 inch of clear space between the strap and the front of my shoulder. How much space is that? Here's 2 cans of Copenhagen. They're in there. That didn't even take much force. Like just barely tapping it. Gets it in there. This gap causes some odd things while you're using it, and I'll talk about that in a minute once I get some kit on. Well, other gear on. Especially when compared to the JPC. Okay, so now I am all kitted up, so we can talk about how this starts to interact with other stuff I've got. Obviously, with not much on the sides, it's easy to get to anything on my sides. And especially, fortunately, can get to the handgun magazines. If I was going to be using this a lot, I might be moving my handgun magazines a little bit further back, but that's probably something I need to do more generally anyway. Yep, take a look just on the sides. You might be able to tell a little bit here. I am attaching the Velcro on the front higher up, so it does let me actually do a little bit of vertical offset. As you can see here, here's the bottom of the back and the bottom of the front. So a little bit of difference there. Probably could fiddle around with this a bit more. But as you can tell, in the back, It's still high enough that this doesn't fully interface, and especially because it's kind of canted outwards, I can get to this just fine. So, let's get to what I was complaining about with the shoulders. Like I said, shoulders are sticking out, which means if I'm actually shouldering up with a rifle, there's kind of this weird dead zone caused by these, despite them being so thin. So, for example, if I come up and I catch on the shoulder, it takes a second as I can't, yeah, there it is. Like, you can see it's pushing the plate around. Unfortunately, that's made even worse by, oh, look, I got some paint on this. Made worse by these cuts giving it enough flexibility that they can actually catch your stock. This can be even worse if you have a pistol brace that somehow accidentally gets near your pectorals. You know, it happens. But the narrower cuts, the narrower blades will fall into these cuts even more easily. That said, with just a little bit of practice, or honestly shouldering closer to where I like, a little bit further out, it works fine. And to a certain extent, it is sort of self-correcting. They will push it off a bit. So, in comparison, while the JPC has worse shoulder and plate positioning, and the straps here actively block where I'm shouldering, because it's only a single negative space, this cut, and the strap is basically directly against my shoulder, as soon as I bring it up, it's right in place, despite the stock actually being on the strap. So, everything up until this point has just been really my subjective feelings on these different carriers. So, I've got my shirt ready, and I'm going to mark it up for a comparison. I'm using, of course, the G3, the 6094 Classic, and the JPC2. All of these are in Sappy Medium, with the full caveat that you can fit a Sappy Large into a medium 6094, and that the JPC2 in medium just doesn't really fit me quite right, but I really wanted to show how different the strap positioning on them is. So, give me a minute while I go mark this up, and I'll be right back. Okay, here we are. The green is the G3, the red is the JPC, and the black is the basic 6094. Sorry if you're colorblind. So, let's take a look here. The green is the narrowest, and as you can see, it's pretty close to the black. In fact, I think it is a lot closer to the black than I really expected it to be. Which kind of points out just how important the positioning of the the back straps are in terms of a subjective feel. Obviously, the JPC goes significantly further out, with about here. Say it was about here that the two lines crossed, where the JPC was completely outside of the G3's area. So I hope that makes it a little more obvious, or a little bit clearer to anyone just seeing what the difference is in where the G3 straps sit compared especially to the JPC. I can't actually explain how difficult this script was to write. This is an incredibly okay plate carrier made by a company that I expect excellence from. It kind of looks like a JPC clone, but it isn't. And one of these days, I'll poke at carriers that really do a bad job of cloning the JPC. Um, it has some features that I think are a little bit better than the JPC, mostly the shoulder placement, even though I'm not particularly excited about that. But on the other hand, it's a questionable modernization of a classic carrier. Uh, while there's definitely modern features on it, there's a lot of really dated ones too. Um, what it boils down to is that the shoulders, while pretty good in terms of placement, end up fairly generic compared to other options. And the straps coming out of that outer shell never quite ride right, especially when combined with the internal pad. Furthermore, without the modular cummerbund attachment that's so ubiquitous now, you can't improve on what you've got there with aftermarket options. Uh, it isn't even particularly good value. The G3 costs about $340, and that's without any of the accessories when it's not on sale with the LBT standard discount, which puts it in a very difficult value bracket. That's nearly the same price as a JPC2 with the most expensive AVS flap, and only about $50 cheaper than an FCPC with the Assault cummerbund that I liked so much in my video on that. For $350, you can get a Bees Aptum all in multicam with a placard. You can, for a couple bucks more, you can get it in Woodland like I did. And that's just a couple of carriers that I've looked at on this channel. Look, I'm an LBT simp. I've joined the Gold Label group. I carry my 40K books and paraphernalia in the LBT messenger bag. And that's why it honestly hurts me to say that if you really want a modernized version of the 6094, the FCPC is probably the best choice right now. It's got the trapezoidal shoulder straps of the classic 6094 with plate bags that don't have extra bulk for soft armor inserts that most people aren't going to use and can take pretty much any aftermarket cummerbunds. All that said, it's not a bad carrier. If you can find a smoking deal on one, go for it. If you have it, I'm not saying just go get rid of it. It's terrible. But just in general, I'm just not excited about it. And that's what it boils down to. Hey folks, thanks for watching to here. I really do appreciate it. According to analytics, like less than 10% of people actually get here, so thank you if you are. I'm trying out an end card here. Apparently I could put one on my last video, but I didn't know that. There should be some links here to videos either YouTube suggested or one I choose. Ignore where I'm pointing because I actually don't know where they are yet. Next time it'll be better. Check them out. There will also be a Twitter thread link in the description with links to most of the stuff I reference here or showed here. Normally, I'd plug my patch store, but due to the interstate move and how slow it is for me to actually get a driver's license and fully become a resident of this state, it's closed for now because I just don't have a business license that's valid right now. No idea how long it's going to be before I do another video. I have a big boy job now, so can't really do work on this during the week. And I have real stuff to do on weekends instead of living in a college, tourist, and CIA retirement town. Anyway, thanks a lot, and have fun with your gear.